We're recording. You're listening to the Tune Up and Jam podcast. Ready? Go.
Hello, everyone. This is episode number 26, Tune Up and Jam podcast.
Tune Up and Jam.
All right, tune up, turn up, get down, and jam. Welcome and tervetuloa.
Oh, you're going to have to say that again.
Tervetuloa.
Say it.
Tervetuloa.
I'm struggling with that.
If I say it a million times, you're still not going to get it.
Tervetuloa.
Yeah. I'm probably axing it up really badly.
Yeah.
But it's welcome in Finnish. Finnish. I don't think we did a
Finnish.
Finnish word.
No,
Finnish.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't think so.
Our friends in Finland. We have plenty of listeners up there. They email us all the time.
Cool.
Yeah, they always asking for Chris. We're not good enough for them. They want Chris. They want the big tall guy.
Who's that guy?
I don't know. He hasn't been around.
I'm Chris.
Oh, hey, there it is. I'm Chris. Hey, Chris.
Sorry, rest of the world.
Yeah, you should be sorry. You should be sorry for a lot of things, Chris.
Yeah, he needs to get back on
He
here.
does need to get back on here. But speaking of Chris, he was going to come tonight, but he couldn't because he's busy. I see how that works. Just like he was going to play a gig last week, but he was busy. He couldn't even play a gig. He was so busy that he couldn't play a gig.
He's got a gig tonight, right? He's probably
Yeah, he's got a gig tonight, and he couldn't do this. It's so weird. Anyway, we were talking on the last time we had a. By the way, if it sounds like Francis and I are both a little bit stuffy, it's because we are. We both have been recovering on the mend.
Yeah.
From a little bit of a probably head cold each. I think Francis had it worse than I did.
No, mine was pretty severe.
Yeah, mine wasn't too bad. But anyway, on our last episode, we were talking about getting gigs. And we've already talked about it in the past also. The reasons, can we just kind of go over the reasons why you take gigs again? One of them was...
I guess let's start with...
We got about like four, I think.
4 or 5, something.
Yeah.
And just so you know, too, this was implanted in my head by, after reading a book when I was, I think, about 13 or 14. It was a book by Tommy Tadesco. Mm-hmm. In fact, I still have it, that studio guitarist. He wrote a book and he wrote a bunch of... bunch of advice. Exactly. He had some pretty cool advice in there. He had little funny lines, funny stories. And, I remember reading something to the effect of, I'll paraphrase it, but essentially taking a gig, if it's for good money, good experience, fun, perhaps, good contacts.
Yeah, networking.
Yeah,
and
networking.
I think we also established to help out a friend.
Yeah.
In our last episode,
I think we threw that in.
Yeah, we threw that in even last time.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
help somebody out, if you can help somebody out.
Yep.
And some of those things even applied most recently.
Oh, yeah? How so?
Well, there was a gig last week that we both played, actually.
There was?
Yeah. And one of us was under that one of those or many of those.
Yeah, well, for me, Chris couldn't make the gig, and this was it was quite a trek out, about 4 or 5 hour drive in the mountains.
Well, let's just say how fast you drive is up to you, but it's 320 miles away. So,
Okay.
So you take that 320 miles away.
But it was a trek. It was in the mountains for this festival. Chris couldn't make it, so he asked me to sit in for him. I was happy to do so, and it was a lot of fun.
So helping out a friend.
Helping out a friend's one.
Would you say any of the other conditions applied? Any other?
Oh, absolutely, because these are guys that I've played with before. I mean, of course, including you. Mm-hmm. So I count that in as fun.
Fun.
Going into another, playing a particular festival, hadn't played before. That's the experience. And it goes along with all of that. Comes with great networking as well.
Networking,
meeting other musicians that I haven't met,
and you're getting paid.
Yeah, there you go. I think that covers it all.
Yeah, it does. All 5 of them.
So basically, it was a no-brainer.
There you go.
The only question, of course, that when it's something like that is, am I free that particular day?
Right.
And I was, so there you go.
And it went off great. It was a lot of fun, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had a blast.
Yeah,
It was really cool.
It was really super
Organizers of the event were basically had everything top notch. And
cool. Yeah.
they
We're
took
talking
care of it.
about the June Lake Jam Fest
Yeah.
up in June Lake, California, just north of Mammoth, up in California there. Beautiful area. Awesome area for a gig. You have the scenery right in front of you, there's mountains and a lake right next to you. It was just
And the view from the stage as the musicians, we had an incredible view
So
of the
cool.
lake and the mountains.
it's like hard not to play well just because you're just like so chill.
yeah, and
just
the vibes
looking
were
out,
all
like,
good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. You know, maybe that phrase gets tossed around quite a bit.
Which
but,
one?
You know, good vibes, the vibes are good. But I mean, like,
It doesn't matter.
that really was true at that place.
Yeah, so
know.
I was, I'm sorry Chris couldn't make it, but I was happy to fill in.
Yeah, me too. It was great. It was great. We had a lot of fun. But what I wanted to ask you was, I think Chris didn't call you until less than a week before that gig. Or
Right.
maybe
It was,
a week.
I think it was the same week. It was probably, I can't remember if it was Tuesday or could have been Tuesday.
Tuesday. So
I believe it was. And the gig was Saturday.
So basically,
No, Saturday.
3 full days
Yeah.
to prepare. Well, to first of all, make sure that if you had anything for the weekend, kind of clear out your schedule, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to your wife.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure everything is good to go.
Yep.
And then you had played with this particular band, and of course, we know each other well, and we play
Mhm.
well together, and we know how we play.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an hour and a half, I think, worth of music that you had to prepare for.
Yeah. I mean, talking about it, I guess it sounds like a lot, but there's an approach that I've gotten used to that works for me.
Mhm.
That, I mean, I'm sure, most musicians that take gigs that, especially as subs or last minute gigs, I'm sure they have their own approaches. But yeah, there was a method for me to learn those things in a short amount of time. And in the case of a lot of the songs, it was relearning because it was last year where I subbed for the same band.
Mhm.
But I think
For-
it was
For the same bass player. For Chris?
same bass player named Chris.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like the songs were completely new to me. However, when you learn a bunch of songs that you're not familiar with, you execute it on the gig, and if you don't play those songs again, there comes a point where you have to essentially relearn. It just makes it a little bit easier that it's somewhat familiar.
So how do you approach it, even though you had played them before? And not to mention, you had to do this one time before as well. You actually had to go in and learn a bunch of songs
Right, and I think
for the first time also.
the first time around, not only were the songs unfamiliar, but I think there were a total of 3 full sets.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, that was a challenge.
And
but,
it's not cover heavy. This isn't a cover heavy band. This is an
Right.
original band. I mean, of course, there's always a cover or 2 or 3 thrown in here in the mix, whatever,
Mhm.
as it goes along with the, for the set or whatever. But these are not songs that you're just gonna, oh yeah, I've heard that a million times before. I just never played it. These are originals. Not to mention, this particular band can, maybe play some of these songs different.
Right.
Each time.
There's a lot of improvisation going on.
Yeah. So
That's true.
what do you do to get prepared for that?
How do I? Well, let's see. I mean, I could break it down and
Break it down.
simplify how I approach it.
Break it down.
Break it down. The very first thing is, of course, just getting the set list together, trying to figure out what songs are going to be played. I like to put that on my iPhone or iPod as a playlist, just so that all the songs that I need to focus on or that are going to be played are, at my disposal anytime, regardless of what I'm doing. I can always listen to it. So listening to those songs over and over again play a big part of it, so that's a little more second nature than just approaching the gig with like charts or music in front of you and just trying to execute it that way. I always like to have it a little more organic. It'll come from inside. So once I do that, and then I start listening through it, I basically analyze everything in my head, thinking, okay, what are the songs that to me sound more difficult than the others, and those are the ones I tackle first. So just to know that, all right, I got those under my belt, or at least I can execute them. And once I execute them, if I hear the other songs a little more easier to approach, then I don't feel as much of the pressure. But now we're talking, in this case, about 4 days.
Yeah.
So so I had a little bit of homework to do. A lot of it was initially because if I'm running around, I already had my schedule for the week. So a lot of it is just listening to the songs over and over as a first step. Over and over again, just hearing the parts, dissecting the parts in my head, understanding the structure of each songs. Okay, this song basically has, 3 parts in it. Typically, you have your verse, chorus, bridge. And then you listen for certain riffs that are going to be essential. Because when you approach certain songs, there are certain riffs that are key to the song, the character of the song, that make the song. And there are certain sections where basically chords are just written over it and you're a little more free to improvise over them. So you have to distinguish those parts and kind of get that in your head.
Yeah, if there's a riff, if there's a little break, if there's some strange 1 or 2 measures of odd time in there every once in a while, just stuff like that is really important, to be prepared for and listen to that the most.
Yeah, so that's the very first thing I do. Listen to the song over and over again. And then when I do have a moment to sit down, with the instrument, then I basically break out my iPad, because that's what I store a lot of songs that, for gigs that, I'm learning, either cover gigs, originals. Basically, I try to keep my library of songs on the iPad. Just makes it so much more convenient. Because I used to just do like from an Excel spreadsheet or similar to like a Google Docs, a Google Drive spreadsheet, have just a list of songs and very, very oversimplified notes. Would have the name of the song, the key, the certain chord structures, and maybe a couple of key riffs, and pretty much that's it. I would fit everything on one line. And so I used to do that, on a sheet of paper that I would eventually print out depending on the gig. But now, of course, having the iPad makes it so much easier. And I just sit there with the iPad and I start mapping it out. Listen to the songs, transcribing the riffs if I need to, breaking out the structure, what repeats, what are the familiar patterns, especially if certain songs don't have a conventional form. So yeah, that's how I approach it. And then when I put it on the iPad, I have my own personal notes of things to watch out for, whether it be a vocal cue, or an instrumental cue, just so that I try to make it so that regardless of my familiarity of the song, based on my notes, could I execute that song without hearing the song, basically. So I try to make it that way.
Yeah.
And just by the nature of listening to it over and over again, it just makes it so much easier.
Now, do you have like any added pressure knowing that we didn't rehearse? Well, you and I got together, but there was no band rehearsal. Is there any added pressure with no rehearsal and knowing that it's a festival gig and, you get there, there's the big stage, you have your own platform, all this stuff. Was there any added pressure in your preparation or anything leading up to it? Or
I don't think there was added pressure, only because regardless if it was a festival gig or some corner bar gig, I think you should approach any gig with, a certain amount of preparation, professionalism, and, preparedness.
Yeah.
So I figured if I'm prepared, then I'll be good. And I think, I put in the effort that I put in, although it was just within a short amount of time, I felt comfortable that I could get through it. So I didn't necessarily feel that, any unnecessary pressure aside from the pressure that you always feel on making sure you want to perform well.
Right. And that's good pressure though.
Exactly.
That's pressure you put on yourself to actually, it keeps you focused. It keeps you focused and you play well.
Right. And for those who say, oh, I never feel pressure, I was like, okay, but, as long as I know people are taking the gig seriously, You don't have to worry yourself with undue pressure, but enough pressure to make yourself want to perform.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Right. Yeah, I feel the same way. And I even think, some people, they talk about suffering from like stage fright or something like that.
Mhm.
There is, I think, a little bit of that. That's not a bad thing. In the same way, it's kind of a pressure thing. Stage fright. It's another thing I think it keeps people focused, because you hear a lot of people. I've read of, famous people who are stage fright, have stage fright. DMC from Run DMC had a big thing about him having stage fright, and he would do this every night. He would
Wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So, but I think if it's not destructive, which to him it started to get,
Right.
if it's not destructive, I think if it's not that severe, I think it's actually not quite a bad thing.
Yeah, I can't speak to the stage fright scenario, because I don't think I've ever had that where it would be paralyzing or it would be detrimental to my performance. But there are always some level of nerves. And I think that's what we're talking about. It's the nervousness to want to perform well. Now, going back to learning a certain amount of songs in a short amount of time, that I think the more you're prepared, the less nerves you would feel.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, and here's the thing where I would always encourage musicians to learn theory, or to instead of just always playing by ear. These are the moments, or these are the gigs that theory really does come in handy, because when you're learning unfamiliar songs, when you start analyzing them, you could see how the song structure fits to every part, one part to the next, and you could see the similarities. You can analyze it to the point where you can see the big picture of the song, so you're not always having to analyze where the next chord, or reading where the next chord is. If you get lost, understanding some theory keeps you in the same, in the same realm or ballpark, that you don't really get off track. And especially when it comes to improvising, because there were a couple of songs where for many bars it was just one chord, or it changed to another chord. Okay, but what do you do with that?
Right.
Well, knowing theory, at least you understand the notes that you can play with, the harmony that the other band members are doing, so that you don't get too outside. If you want to go outside, at least you know when or how to do that if you have your knowledge of theory. Yeah. So to me, it's not necessarily being completely familiar with the songs, but having enough background in theory, you can get through a lot of last-minute gigs, with a solid base.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. Plus, it when you were talking about these jams, not only do you can know where you want to venture, it also keeps you from stepping on other people's toes. There's all kind of different things that's good for. So I think that was a very good point.
Yeah,
and going back to the nervousness thing, something popped in my head. I think it's like maybe not necessarily always a nervousness, but a heightened awareness of okay, I've got something to focus on, and I've got to focus everything on that.
Right.
So it's a kind of more of a heightened awareness,
right,
more than anything necessarily a pressure or nervousness or anything like that. It's just an awareness.
Right. And I think it's important to add too that even though, let's just say, your heightened awareness of what you're doing, it's very important to have a heightened awareness of what's actually going on in the moment. Mm-hmm. Because you could take the studio recording, learn the song, execute it, in your rehearsal space the way you hear it, and as you think and expect as it should be. But once you get on stage, certain dynamics change, and they play a role. So if you hear the band kind of, bringing it down, you can't just sit there blindly and like, I'm so focused, this is the part.
Right.
And you just can't play. You always have to have that heightened awareness of what's actually happening live.
Right. All the members on stage, everything that's happening,
right,
the crowd, all that stuff. It's a heightened awareness.
Right, because there were times where it's like certain solos I think were extended, and certain things changed, and things were prolonged. Certain sections were prolonged, and the only way you're going to get through that, well, let's just say the only way I got through that was just listening.
Right.
All right. So
you can't fall into a daydream.
No.
Yeah. It's
Especially
just-
not with bands that improvise a lot.
Right.
So.
Right. So
Yeah.
that was, but it ended up being a great time. And
Yeah.
with all that preparation, even though it's 3 days worth of preparation, that kind of, it sounds like you felt pretty comfortable going into it because you were prepared. You had done it before. Me. You've played with all of us before.
Right. Yeah, that made everything so much
and
easier.
so that also makes it that much more fun.
Right,
you know?
right. And going back to all those check marks on determining, when to take a gig, that was like a no-brainer.
Yeah. It was nice.
So it was cool.
It was a lot of fun. And you know what? We always say, I thought of this earlier. We always say that, sometimes when we go these gaps without recording a podcast,
Uh-huh.
it's because we are musicians first. We always say that. And that if that calls, then we're doing that first.
Right.
Well, here we were. And we enjoy on this podcast being around other bands. We've had other bands on, other musicians on.
Right.
We like doing that. Well, here we were at a festival. You probably didn't think of this. We were at a festival, the two of us, with how many bands were there? Maybe 12 total? 14?
Easily around that number.
Yeah, and then other people who were involved. We knew the sound guy who owned the company, who set
Right.
up the whole production. We knew the person who put the whole festival together. She was there. We had other radio DJs there. All these people who were involved. And not one time did you and I, at least together, I don't know if you did at any point, but not one time did we go, hey, maybe we should get these people on the podcast. Because we were so focused on us being the musician.
Yeah.
We didn't even think about the podcast.
Yeah, well, admittedly, we're still green to the podcast game.
We are,
So-
but we are 26 episodes in now, and it's not like we haven't done this before. And we have had musicians on, and
Yeah.
but it
you know
just
what?
goes to show that we really mean it when we say we're musicians first.
Yeah, and
Because
think
we
about
had
this,
an opportunity to have a lot of people that we can make contacts with,
and the other bands had musicians that we know as well.
yeah,
So it was kind of a situation where, all right, we go in there, you do the gig, but at the same time, you're watching your friends play. You're meeting new people, watching them play, and you're in the moment. But now that in hindsight, you think, yeah, I guess it would be nice to talk about bringing somebody on. But again, we can easily find these folks.
Oh, yeah.
Some are friends, and we'll definitely.
Well, I think that was part of it because everybody was so accessible. We knew everybody. Even if we didn't know them well, we knew them or we had met them or whatever it was.
at least around the scene, yeah.
So I think it feels that we can just call them up if we want them now. Like, it's just we didn't think of that at the
No.
time. Not that we had any equipment to do a podcast at that point or anything. We just never mentioned it to anybody that, hey, you want sometime come over, give a business card, anything like that. We just didn't do it.
Yeah, sometimes we should wear our podcast hats just to keep
Something.
it going, because I would like to do more regular episodes. It's just it's a challenge sometimes with the schedule. But,
Right.
yeah, but
But-
we're going to continue.
Well, this is our second one in 2-3 weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
We're going. We're not stopping.
No.
We're on a roll.
And
We're
one of
going to
these
keep
days-
doing it.
Yeah, and we're going to get smoking here.
We are going to get smoking here. He is going to come back. He wants to do it. So anyway, I was thinking, speaking of the whole trip up there and 320 miles up and back.
Yeah.
Well, 320 miles up, 320 miles back.
Okay.
I know 320 because as soon as I pull, I don't know if you
Right.
saw the sign. Did you see the sign?
No, but
As soon as you pull onto that highway right outside the little town there,
Uh-huh.
it says LA 320 miles. And when you see that, you're just like, oh man. It was like 1:00 in the afternoon, and I'm just like, oh. I'm not
But
loving it.
I told you this before. It is one of the easiest mountain
Oh, my
drives
God.
you could do.
It's like 2 turns.
Yeah.
Like you get on the freeway and then you turn left. Like after 320 miles, or after 318 miles, you turn left, and then you're like right there. That's it.
Yeah, so anybody in Southern California wanting to go up to the Mammoth Lakes area or any of those neighboring communities, it's just so easy.
It's totally. There's nothing like going to Big Bear or
Right.
Mountain High. Or
No
none of that-
winding
none of that
roads.
Winding road.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's just a freeway, and then you turn left.
There you go.
Literally, that is it. I mean, it doesn't get any easier, and it's such a nice drive.
Yeah, it was
But
great.
speaking of all that,
Mhm.
you know what popped into my head earlier? Okay, we got the drive. You get paid for something like this. You get paid gigs.
Mhm.
I was thinking to myself,
Nice accommodations, by the way. Great.
oh my God, yeah.
You just can't complain.
Huge. I mean, I think we could have fit like 15 people. I think we counted. We could have fit 15 people, and we had 2 of those places.
Right.
It was just amazing. It was really cool. Anyway, there was a long time when I didn't realize myself. I've been playing a long time and played many gigs where you make various amounts of money from $20 up to several $100s, whatever it is. And there was a long time that I never thought to consider myself like a worker, a freelance employee,
Yeah.
myself,
Right.
and to think of that as something that I can take advantage of when it comes to something like when you drive, you get those mileage. You can write that
Mhm.
mileage stuff off
Like for tax
for
purposes.
tax purposes.
Oh, yeah.
For a long time, I didn't. You basically are the reason I think of that now. But I think that's a really important thing when it comes to because when people are, when you take gigs, you're taking what you can sometimes. And like I said,
Yeah.
you might get $20, you might get $700, whatever it is. But all of that is income.
Mhm.
You consider that income, and you went there somehow. You got there. Don't forget that. Don't. It's not just okay. I got a gig, but I hope I break even. Or I hope I don't.
Yeah. I think a lot of musicians get into this whole thing because first and foremost, it's fun.
Right.
It's it's a great thing to do. It's a great, art. The expression part of it is incredible. The social aspect of it is, of course, really good. But people often neglect the business side of things.
Yeah.
And in the end, you don't have to be making tons of money to consider, looking at that more in depth or more professionally. You could, even if you're a part-time professional, if you're making money, simply said, it's a business.
Mm-hmm.
And you should treat it seriously and try to take advantage of, the systems that are in place, especially because, it's not like music nowadays is one of those givens where it's like, easy money, lots of money, at your disposal. It's like people have to hustle.
Yep.
People have to hustle to break even. Sometimes people hustle and, they're on the negative side. So you always look for benefits that try to help you out along the way. And yes, treating yourself as a professional includes, taking good notes and keeping good records of your activities when it comes to expenses. When you're shopping, when you're buying equipment, you're buying guitar strings, drumsticks, drum heads, anything related to that. When you're going on, gigs, especially long gigs. Yeah, you're talking about the mileage.
Yep.
And everything counts. And I think the important thing to do is, even though you don't understand the full approach, the basic thing to understand is keeping good records.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, keep great records, and then go see a tax professional, and then they could sort that out for you.
Yeah, get one of those apps. There's plenty of apps out there that you can just input any of your expenses, your driving mileage.
Oh, you mean for the sake of collecting the information?
When
Yeah.
you're talking about keeping records.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so simple. I mean, some of the driving apps, all you got to do is have it on, and it'll just start tracking when you start driving. I mean, it's that simple,
Right. And, sometimes people have they get turned off by that whole approach of, I don't want to, get into that. I don't fully understand that. But in the end, if you're serious about music, you're going to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just throwing money away.
Well, it's a hobby.
Right.
If you're just kind of going, well,
Right.
I'll drive, an hour to get there, and I'll play, and if I make $20 out of it, whatever, I'll make up the difference at work tomorrow, or something. I'll take it as a loss. It was just a fun day out, It's a hobby,
Yeah.
which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that either.
No.
You know.
No. But if you're going to do this often enough, where you're, putting a lot of money into this whole, venture that you spend all your weekends and sometimes your nights, just practicing or rehearsing, it really will help out. It'll help, allow you to, buy that next piece of gear that, you've been trying to upgrade on or whatever the case is.
Yeah, and everybody's always trying to come up with another method of making some income, supplemental income, whatever it is,
right.
and being able to purchase gear and then use that at the end on your taxes as a write-off, or like I said, the mileage and all those things that helps you, so you're not losing a lot of that. You're getting income, and then you can get kind of reimbursed for mileage and all those things come tax time.
Absolutely.
So
keep good records.
Yeah. Keep good records and just consider doing that if you're, I think, even if it's $500, that's I think it's the law or something like that.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to misquote the changing tax laws.
Yeah, really.
But
especially in California.
Yeah. But that's the best advice I think we can give is keep those records, log everything, and then consult a tax professional. And then they'll tell you what's allowable, what's not, and what you can and can't do. But it doesn't help you if you can't pull that together, So, and it's so easy. You're going to do this anyways. That's how I figure it. It's like, look, you're going to play those gigs. You're going to make that drive. You're going to buy that new piece of gear. You're going to spend all this time and energy into this thing that we all love. Could you make it a business? Could you make it a part-time business?
Side business, whatever.
Right. And it might work out to, bring in more income. And that's great, right? But you're not going to take full advantage of it until you get your business side of things in order.
Yep.
So
yeah, and
that's what I have to say.
It could be one of those things. 1 year it makes more. 1 year, I mean, it's a business just like any business, But hey, keep those records.
Right.
It's important. I think it's important. Speaking of gear,
I
remember something about gear. Oh, that was a strange noise.
Crickets.
So
we have
almost sounded like a UFO was landing outside.
We have the door open here and try to keep the cool air coming in here. We're hearing a bunch of crickets.
Yeah, speaking of cool air, finally, it's really nice out. That's all I'm going to say. It's just really nice out. It was hot for a while. Now it's really nice. We're back to being in Southern California. It's really nice weather. But speaking of gear, okay, this has nothing to do with buying gear. This has nothing to do with tax write-offs or anything like that. I wrote down okay.
Uh-oh.
How can I put this?
Why are you
here we go again.
Just simple words. Just say it.
So I am definitely encouraging of anybody who wants to play an instrument. That's what we do here. We've talked about this before. Hey, whatever, for whatever reason you want to do, playing an instrument, whatever, it's great. Okay. I get pet peeves. I don't know if you knew this before.
You?
Yes, I get pet peeves, and sometimes they eat away at me. And I'm usually pretty easygoing, and I can let stuff slide. But I do get pet peeves.
But not this time.
Well, it's not even anything. Well, there's something in particular that I noticed. But I also have students that kind of reminded me of this pet peeve. Right. Although I don't blame my students.
Is this related to gear?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't blame my students though because they're brand new. I have a kid who's learning how to play drums right now, and and he said this is what tipped it off to me. By the way, I was helping him. I was teaching him how to put one of my drum sets. I have an extra drum set that I use for students.
Right.
And I was teaching him how to put together, and it was the second time we had done it, and then I only use one mounted tom, and then like a floor tom.
Okay.
Especially for a student. I mean, he doesn't need anything more than that.
Right. Minimal setup, but
he doesn't even need that really. You know what I mean? It's just minimal setup. And he says, "Well, what about this one right here? There's one missing." Like a second rack tom. And I, of course, I was just looking at don't worry about that. You don't need that. But that reminded me of the whole thing where people think they need more. I know we talked about gear a couple weeks ago and about a lot of people think they need more and want more because they're experimenting with sound. But on the flip side, some people get in their minds that when they get more, somehow they're better or somehow they're improving, you know?
Yeah.
And that becomes a pet peeve of mine. I mean, I shouldn't say a pet peeve. I'm not annoyed necessarily with them. I'm annoyed with their thinking or with... I don't know what it exactly that annoys me about it, actually. But...
Well, you know, I look at it as, especially with drum sets. You know, in the 80s when they had like a lot of those metal drummers would be basically trapped behind this circle of drums.
Yeah, Alex Van Halen.
Yeah, okay.
And, Neil Peart.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying if
Terry Bozzio.
yeah, if your student is used to seeing professional drummers or at least popular drummers out there surrounded by so many drums, okay, that's another. That's one thing that could be addressed, right?
Of course, yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean somebody with, 10 extra guitars, it's the same thing.
Right.
You know? It could be, it's the... Yeah, I don't know. Because you started off on the drum set thing, and I could see where people get used to seeing a drum set set up with multiple toms. And you start questioning.
Of course. I mean, you see that, and you think that's what you need.
Right. And I don't think he meant, because I don't think he knows enough to think that he or a better musician would have more, right? Or are you talking about musicians, like a little more seasoned musicians?
As I said, I'm not in any way... My student is one thing.
Yeah.
He's naive to the whole thing. He's a kid. Of course he's thinking, I don't put any sort of blame on him.
Mm-hmm.
However,
Uh-huh.
like I said, he reminded me of the pet peeve by him saying that, okay? Because you and I both know somebody, and we won't say a name. We saw him at the festival, and he's all about percussion and
Okay.
lots of stuff.
Okay.
We won't even say whether or not he played.
Okay.
We just know this percussion guy.
All right.
And I don't know. He just seems to believe that if he has more and more stuff, seemingly he's improving. And I don't want to sound... I don't want to put him down. I don't want to sound condescending or anything like. But gear does not equal skill. You have to focus. If you want to be a musician, if you want to perform, if you want to do whatever, you have to learn the skill too to play. If you're going to play with bands, if you're going to play, like I said, perform, whatever, you should be focusing on your skill because that's free. Also.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. It's like, yeah. It's
This is a little bit controversial in somehow.
I don't know. It comes to...
I don't want it to be controversial. I just want to... I'm trying to make a point that it's important to focus on your skills.
Right. And especially...
I just happen to have major pet peeves that go along with things.
Well, if you happen to know about a musician that you've seen around, and perhaps you see that, okay, skill is not improving, or but maybe the acquisition of instruments, or keeps happening or get more and more. Yeah, you know what? Here's the thing, especially with music. With music, it's subjective. Right? You could talk about the level of musicianship with this player or that player or whatever. I could see what you mean, especially when it comes to certain styles of music where if you're going to be a part of the band, you would think that there's something being contributed to the band.
Correct.
All right? That's
Yes.
kind of what you're getting at.
Yeah.
It's not just a visual presence on the stage.
Correct. It looks great.
It looks great, but musically, you were hoping for a lot more contribution than what you've noticed.
Correct. Well, Whether or not I was hoping for it is one, it's
Yeah, but
expectations as a musician, I guess.
But do you think do you think that this person's perception is, well, the more he gets, the more
I mean, I
better?
wouldn't. Seems to me to be yes.
Mm-hmm.
The answer to that question. Now, I'm obviously not in his head. I've never spoken to him about this. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to be that, hey, I like this. That's neat. I'm going to get one. That's neat. I'm going to get one. This is cool. I'm going to be this guy. You know what I mean? And then
But
just
doesn't
acquiring a bunch of stuff. But, I mean, that and you're talking about, like, that playing those instruments is kind of like it's a skill in and of itself.
Right.
You aren't just a drum, like, there are drummers who don't do that properly. There's kind of like,
Right.
It's a completely different animal. It's not just banging away at drums. It's not just playing beats. There's patterns. There's all these proper ways of playing things, playing the different drums, the different.
Perhaps there's a sense of the choice of percussion at a particular time.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
I hear you.
You know what I mean? There's all these different things
Yeah.
that people work on for years.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have a good friend who does percussion. I think you brought him in one time to record.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A couple
Exactly.
of different. I mean, people do this, and that's their thing. I mean, that's just like you playing guitar,
Right.
and playing it for years and practicing and doing all these different things. And you can't just go and grab one of those bongos and just start banging it and say you're a bongo player. You know, I mean, there's.
Are you taking this like? Do you think it's insulting to other musicians that this could be the perception that, or I should say, to other percussionists? Because let's get to it. It's like you're talking about percussion.
I don't think it's that. No, I don't think it's that. It's not that severe. First of all,
Mm-hmm.
to where it's insulting. I think that's a little bit too far. Like I said, it's just annoying to
Just
me.
annoying.
It's annoying to me because I mean, this also happens in other realms too. We've all seen the dude. He shows up to a baseball game. He's never played before, but he's got the best cleats and the brand new best bat and high tech batting gloves and stuff like that, and he can't hit the side of a barn. You know what I mean? Like it's that guy. It's that person.
I see.
The first person goes skiing and they buy everything that's like top of the line. You know.
So it's like more focus is placed on the gear as opposed to the craft.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fashion over the function. You know.
Yeah.
Rather than the opposite.
I hear you, and putting it. Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
So and then,
But let me ask you
the
though.
other thing is as I said, I've seen this person play over several years too, and
Right.
I haven't seen. It's disappointing to me. I haven't seen it doesn't seem as if there's any exploration into what he's got.
Okay.
And like pulling from, the other thing that got me into this today was I was on a hike today, and on my Spotify some Cuban music came over.
Right.
And you've listened to Cuban music, you understand the percussion and all the patterns that go
In
into
fact,
it.
your friend you're talking about is Cuban.
Yeah,
Yes.
which makes it worse.
Yeah. No, I'm saying my friend you're talking about.
Oh,
Sorry. Yeah, my friend that you were referring to, he's Cuban. The percussion.
right.
Yes.
And I mean there's just such a complexity to that. That is super effing cool.
Yes.
And the patterns that go into it
Mm-hmm.
is what it makes it. That is what makes that Cuban music, salsa music, all those types of things. And I would, if I had those instruments, those particular instruments, you're damn well better believe I would be pulling elements for there to bring them in, however I could. You know what I mean? I would be influencing some songs as much as possible to go that way, just because it's awesome. And there's none of that. You know what I mean? There's nothing but typical, very simple.
Here's the thing.
Quiet too.
Now here's the thing. You're talking. I mean, as a musician, and you've seen. We've seen just hundreds or thousands of musicians. In our lifetime, right? And we have opinions and stuff. But could this be a point of, all right, you're speaking more. You're speaking as a critic, just as a critic, because here the flip side of it, just to open up a little perspective, is if this person has been playing with the same group of people in a band, or let's just say in a particular band, if this guy's been, apparently they're cool with it enough to allow this to go on. Number two, maybe not only are they cool with it, but maybe they're not asking for more.
Perhaps, yeah.
And
I mean,
it's
obviously they don't hate it, and I'm not saying yes. I'm just being a critic. I'm not
right.
I'm
like
not,
just as an example, in today's musical climate, or whatever you want to call it, how there are certain styles of music where as from a keyboard perspective, you just need one note, or you need a chord or a couple of chords. And so that person who has this incredible keyboard is going on stage holding that one chord.
Yeah.
Is it effective to the song and stuff? That now you're talking about, that's a matter of opinion, right? Now, as a musician, analyzing that from a musical standpoint, of course you're gonna be more critical, as opposed to, there's certain genres or there's certain songs that maybe the songwriter, whoever's producing it, doesn't require it, doesn't want it, doesn't care. If the song moves somebody, then that's legitimacy in and of itself for their purpose or for what they want. All the other, educated musicians could throw all this criticism about, you're not really doing anything more than one chord or two chords. And, it's all about the looks and the stage presence and this and that.
Well, that's been a classic criticism of lots of popular music over many, many years, is how simple it is. And,
right.
how many times when I was growing, they sucked, they only played two chords, and they're all popular. You know what I mean? Of course.
Right.
I'm just saying this is a little bit different than that. I mean, I don't, and I feel bad because, here we are with this podcast, and we always try to say, do what you can, do whatever makes you happy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Play. For some reason, this is a different level. This is a different thing for me. You know what I mean? Like, it's play. I don't want to come across like a jerk either. You know what I mean? Like,
not too late. Too late. All right.
I don't know, man.
I look at it as.
But yes, you're right. The group of people that allows or that plays with is fine with this. It's similar to having a producer who only wants one chord being played the entire song or something like that. I can see those similarities. Okay, fine. Play it so I can hear it. Okay? Let's say that keyboardist is on stage, they play one chord, but you can't hear it. You can see them playing it, pushing down on the keys, but you can't even hear it. What's the point? You know what I mean? And so...
Yeah, I could see this. This is getting under your skin.
Yeah,
more.
so then, that makes things different here, right? And it comes down to technique, and knowledge.
Yeah.
I guess...
You know what I think it is, too? You're being a drummer, and... you're hyper aware of rhythms and percussive sounds, and just not just being a drummer, but I'm just saying, being as an experienced musician who's seen and heard so many styles, and you can appreciate that level of musicianship, that when the people really do it well. And I think in your eyes, if somebody comes in a little half-ass, you're just not feeling it, and it's like, that's where, and this is how I'm interpreting what you're saying. You're annoyed by that. Somebody who's like doesn't care too much, or doesn't seem to care as much about the musician side of it, and is more concerned about the appearance of having this stage full of different instruments and this movement. There's a lot of movement, picking up and putting down percussion, but in the audible sense, it's insignificant because you don't hear anything really effective by this person.
I mean, even when there's a stick and a cowbell, didn't hear it. That's like things like that. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I'm coming across as like a jerk. So what? I don't care. But I do. I mean, like, I feel bad. Also, because personally, very nice person, very nice guy. You know what I mean? that's also kind of making me feel bad. It's just an observation. I'm kind of picking on this one person, but like I said, it goes across the board for me for other areas too, sports, whatever.
Right.
So that's
you know what here's the thing.
I am on the couch. Remember.
Yeah, you're on the couch. But here's the thing.
This is my therapy session for the week again.
How I can relate to how you're feeling is I remember, many eons ago when this pop band Duran Duran was just coming on the scene, and they were on the charts. And of course, I was a young musician, learning guitar, trying to learn the craft, reading guitar magazines and all this and that. And some quote, caught my eye in one of the guitar magazines, whereas I think it was the bass player, I can't remember his name, but he said something about, before I go on stage.
Like Simon something?
I couldn't even begin to
there's
tell
a
you.
Simon in Duran Duran.
But anyway. the quote stuck with me because it annoyed me, where he said, "Oh yeah, before I go on stage, I'm more concerned about my hair than what kind of strings are on my bass."
Yeah.
And that quote, it was jarring to me in the sense that's like, what? It's like, what did he?
And that was in a bass player magazine.
It was probably in Guitar Player.
Magazine?
Probably Guitar Player. I remember regularly reading Guitar Player magazine, and yeah, it could have been one of the other ones as well. But that quote, I'm sure there's a quote out there that you could find it, read it verbatim. But it was in that sense that he's more concerned about whatever his hair or his
whatever
looks,
appearance
over what's what kind of strings are on his bass.
Yeah.
So it was just one of those things that I thought, I don't know, but what is this?
Yeah.
And it reminded me a lot of what you're saying. It's like, hey, okay, they're going out there, they're doing this thing, and how I see what you're saying is that there's more focus on the percussion, the appearance, the stage, than actual musical content.
Well, yeah, but only for that one instrument, that one particular player, because I think the rest of the band is very talented. I think the rest of them play very well, and which I guess in a way helps exacerbate it for me. Because I think if only he would, you know what I mean? Like,
so if the rest of the band was similarly, how do you say it's if they were on his level of musicianship, then they all would have sounded relatively close to each other, and probably the contributions would have been, similar. But you're seeing him excuse me, coughing up a storm.
Jeez, Francis.
But you're seeing the other musicians really being great musicians, and then they have this guy here. It's like the oddball.
Definitely the weak link. You know what I mean?
Right.
Whatever the you pick your analogy.
Yeah.
I
get from that sense. I get it.
Yeah. So, I guess that's what kind of if they were all on the same level, then you just go, they're just that band, whatever. You know what I mean? And you not really think much about it. So the fact that I think when you see that, you go, God, man, put me back there. I don't play a lot of percussion, but I do know patterns. I do all this stuff. I would have some fun back there. You know what I mean? Just.
Yeah, but remember though, but see, you're talking as that critic.
I know.
Where it's like maybe there's other elements to this whole situation. I mean, we've heard of stories where, somebody's part of a band, but it's because they have some close relationship with somebody else in the band.
Correct.
And they thought, hey, it'd be fun if you can come and add this little element here. Just do this and just do that, and and then they're fine. And apparently, the rest of the band is fine with it, but it doesn't necessarily mean, all right, they're trying to be this or that. However, but now that I'm saying this, I'm talking it out, I'm hearing, but when you put yourself on stage, you are, allowing yourself to be open to the criticisms of everybody.
Right.
From the music critics, musicians, etc.
That is absolutely true, which I brought this up because of that too. Because yeah, I mean, if you're going up there, some people are going to like you. Some
Right.
people are not going to like you.
Right.
And whether you're talented or not, even, and
Right.
so, I mean, yeah, you're right. I think, I just think I would just like to say that you should work on your skills before acquiring a bunch of equipment, expensive equipment, anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's important to work on your skill.
Right. I agree with that. I think the most important thing is your skill.
Yeah.
Because in the end, an expensive sounding this or that is not going to make you a better sounding musician.
Yeah.
And then and we've probably talked about this before too, that a great musician can make a piece of crap instrument, sound like them, sound good.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not going to matter.
For sure. And, it's just coming into my head is it's great to have a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what you want to do is acquire all these instruments, that's great. But if you happen to get in also a situation, you're lucky enough that a band picks you up and they are pretty talented people. It's a pretty good band. It might behoove you to kind of try to improve. You know what I mean?
I could tell you're holding back on what you really, really want to say.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe I just don't want to. Maybe I want to keep it family friendly. I don't know.
Yeah. What is this?
I'm just saying, if you're lucky enough to go from this is my hobby, I just collect a bunch of these things and it's fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. That's what we encourage, right? Mm-hmm. But if it goes to a band picks you up, then it's get a little more serious about it. I think, try to improve. Look at some other types of music with a lot of those elements in it, and see what you can pull from. Be a little creative with it. Add something. Play louder. Do something.
What do you say to those people that say, I'm having fun. We have our weekend gigs, and do I really need to improve? I'm happy with these weekend gigs that this band allows me to play in. Here's how I look at it. I look at it. Well, sorry, I asked the question and then I cut you off. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that's great, but don't be surprised if at some point they say, you know what, we're gonna go with this other person, or we need more from you, and if you can't do it, you know what I mean. Don't be surprised if it gets to that point.
And that is what my point was going to be. I was going to be, everybody has their reason for picking up an instrument, being a part of something. We all have our different reasons. In the end, we're carving out our own paths and our own, final destinations, or I should say, the consequences of that.
Yeah.
So I always say it's let it be when it comes to other musicians. If you had anything to say, yes, always try to improve your craft. And keep that musical integrity, because when you improve, you just have more ways of expression, which could allow for more opportunities, and not just opportunities for bigger and better things, but just simple, the experience, just simple fun. It opens up so many avenues in that realm, so that's why I would encourage someone.
Right. And it kind of goes back to your point earlier about knowing theory for any situation, just because it eases things, and things, where to go, what to do, what not to do, and that frees you up to have fun too. You know what I mean?
Right. Because going back to the gig that I subbed for, if I didn't know theory and I had a very, very limited knowledge when it came to the instrument, probably most of my energy would be in, my finger goes on this fret, my finger goes on this fret. After that, then it goes this. And it would be a lot of tedious memorizations, which I know some people who've gotten by with that. Mm-hmm. You'd memorize certain positions and stuff. But for me, knowing that, okay, those positions are really all in this one key or two keys if there's a change,
right? It
just allows me to actually enjoy the moment more, as opposed to being burdened by the memorization. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything. Whatever you do in life, whatever your hobby is in life, let's say, if you just have a hobby, if you work on engines, it's more interesting if you understand how the engine works rather than, oh, well, this part goes here. And then, here's where you put the the carburetor goes here. And if you understand how it works together, all works together, then it's just more. That's why people have those. That's why people get into that, and that's why they get good, because they understand it.
Right. No,
You
I'm
know?
with you.
If you make model airplanes, you know what I mean. You understand the pieces. You know how they all work together, and you probably understand a plane itself. So it's interesting to you, and you do it well. You know what I mean. The more interesting it is to you, the more you do it, and the more you just kind of end up doing it better. You know, you improve.
Yeah, I agree in that sense. I'm not as annoyed as you, but I know where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I do see why you feel like that.
Yeah.
It's just I'm coming from the perspective of, well, everybody's going to carve their own path, and we'll end up where we end up.
Yeah. I guess I mean, yes, I get pet peeves and annoyed at stuff. I thought it was a good topic to bring up.
Oh yeah, I think so. Because here, listen to this. If nothing else, at least people are more aware of what other musicians are thinking.
Yeah, it's true. I guess sometimes we get catty too.
Yeah.
But that wasn't why I brought that up. I mean, like I said, I just get these pet peeves, and it goes across the board. But maybe ultimately it just disappoints me that there's that weak link in a good band.
Mm-hmm.
Where you want to see, especially when you're friends with people,
mm-hmm.
You want to see them have the best chance of being successful.
Right.
Right. And when you see glaring weak link, you just go, God.
You go, if only.
Yeah.
I know. And how many times have people have said that to everybody else?
Right.
And they have their own opinion. And we're talking, because bands are like relationships.
Yep.
And people all the time say, "Oh,
they're not like relationships; they are relationships."
Yeah, I meant like personal, intimate relationships.
Yeah.
And how many times do you see your buddy, either boy or girl, or they think, "Oh, if only they realize that this is not working for them, or this is going to lead to a bad situation." But we're not in that, right?
Right.
And so the perspectives aren't the same,
right?
And you just can't imagine. Another perspective. If you're not one of the two in there, you're just, it doesn't matter.
No.
All these opinions can fly around, but if you're feeling what you're feeling, and that's why here, when it comes to that, not to get too off topic here, but once you know yourself, if you know yourself, what you like and know where you want to improve, and just always trying to be a better person and do something, then I think things will fall in line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But once you start, if you don't know yourself, and then you're getting into bad situations and, crazy bands and all this and that, then you're going to be lost and you're going to have a hell of a time.
Yeah.
But anyways, so, I think that was enough said for...
we stuck on that topic for a while, but I think it was a good discussion on it.
Yeah, I think so too.
I thought it was worth bringing up.
Yeah, if you guys want to have any other things to say to us, if you want to contribute to... what we talk about here, send us an email, podcast@tuneupandjam.com, and visit us on Instagram, Facebook, all the other social media outlets.
Twitter,
yeah.
We're big Twitterers.
Are we? Twitter.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, but find us, hit us up if you want to be on the show.
But we are on Twitter, by the way.
Yeah, we are. If you want to be on the show, want to be a part of it, and if you have your opinions you want to get on our show to just, basically spew as loud and as long as you want, hit us up.
Please do so. And if you disagree with anything Francis or I said, or agree with us, let us know.
Yeah, if you disagree with anything Rich says.
If you want to attack me, go for it. Send me something. We'll bring you on. We can have you on. We can have a nice civil disagreement if you disagree with me.
Yeah, but in the end, we'll keep it as positive as we can and promote what you want to promote, and we'll all be good.
Yeah.
Cool.
And we'll make sure to have Chris on soon.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
Bye-bye.
Bye. Late.